Good morning. I believe it's still morning. Yes, it's 11:30. I'm Leanne Wood, and I'm part of the PR and social media team for the show and your host on the Smart Stage, powered by CE Pro. Next up is an extremely hot topic in the world of both design and technology, and that is wellness. This panel is sponsored by CT Labs Global Media, and please pick up a copy of the magazine Connected Design. There's a few on the chairs. For any of you that wondered what CLIP stands for, when you see that certification behind a few of our panelists' names, it stands for Certified Living in Place Professional. And we're excited to have 2 CLIP certified people joining us, as well as 2 home technology experts today. Get ready to learn about new revenue opportunities for your business. Our moderator today is Erik Listou, co-founder of the Living in Place Institute. Erik, Mike, Toni, and Alex, please join me on the stage for introductions and your panel discussion.
Okay, let's hear it. Let's hear it. Come on. Not often do we get real applause, so we'll take it now before we start. Welcome, everyone. Welcome. How many are from the Colorado area here? How many have traveled to be here? Thank you, thank you, thank you very much. Let me ask a couple questions before we get started. When we get started, I won't walk in front of the panelists, but let me stand here now. How many here have any vision issues? Anybody have a vision issue? How many here wear glasses? That means you have a vision issue. 3/4 of Americans have a vision issue. So does that mean they can see the controls? Or do they need technology? Do we need technology to help us understand our environment around us? Do you know any persons who have any physical issues? Do you have any family members that might have some challenges? Did you know that 1 million Americans have Alzheimer's? And another 8 million Americans have the shakes, the tremors. Could you imagine trying to eat a bowl of cereal with your hand shaking? Do you think technology could help those persons? Let me show you a spoon that has some of the most incredible technology you'll ever find. This is a tremor canceling spoon. A person could actually eat with dignity if I disengage that and I tried to eat. So technology has amazing impact on our lives, on our wellness, on helping all of us. As was introduced, I'm the co-founder of the Living in Place Institute. We're here to help you raise your awareness, to bring you education. That's why we are honored, very deeply honored, to be able to not co-present, but to learn from these, the real experts. So let's jump right into it, should we? Shall we? That's great. Alex, let's start with you. Alex, you pioneered the early voice control, this whole world, as I was saying, to be able with a vision issue. Those with glaucoma, you don't see what's in front of you. There's always a dot in your eyes. So if this were my permanent condition, and 30% of the people over age 70 have this vision condition, and it gets worse, how would technology help me when I'm in my home trying to adjust my thermostat or do anything in my life? Tell us what your contributions are.
Absolutely. Thanks everyone for being here, and I'm happy to be on this panel. My name is Alex Capecelatro, co-founder, CEO of Josh.ai. At Josh, we're really focused on natural and intuitive interfaces, where voice is a really big piece of that. In our mind, one of the great things about voice control is it really is a great equalizer. When you think about all the devices that are in the home and how quickly that's growing, it's pretty complicated to control the fireplace, the TV, the music, the shades, etc. But if all you have to do is walk in and say, turn off X, turn off the lights, turn off the music, turn off the TV, it makes things much, much simpler. Now this is true for people of all age categories. When we started the company, we thought that a lot of our customers were going to be very tech forward, very tech savvy. And it turns out, while that is true to a certain extent, we were also wrong in that a lot of our clients tend to be a little bit older they tend to be a little bit more tech adverse. They're not wanting the latest, greatest technology. They want simplicity. They want it to be really easy to do what they need in their home. And so a lot of our clients are in their 70s. They might have a hard time seeing small screens. They might have a hard time with mobility. But with voice control, it really makes things a lot simpler. And so we're really excited to be really in this space at this time as the whole kind of health and wellness area is just growing like crazy.
In the next 10 years, where do you see us going? Have we reached the plateau? Are we there yet?
I think we're all aware that we're just at the very beginning of this transformative industry. With voice control in particular, this is the very beginning. In many cases, it's still clunky. It can still be hard to use. In some cases, it just might not work at all. And so we're really big believers that with the right AI and machine learning and the right focus on the problems that we're all addressing in the smart home, it's going to just keep getting better and better and better. And so I don't see a plateau anytime soon, but right now we're definitely in the very early stages.
Thank you. Toni, as a designer, and I hope you all know Toni Sabatino, we're very honored that she's here with us today. How do your clients incorporate technology? How do you have this discussion with them?
Well, a little bit about me. I am Toni Sabatino. My company, Toni Sabatino Style, is a boutique interior design firm. I am a kitchen and bath specialist, and I'm also the president of the Manhattan chapter of the Kitchen and Bath Association, National Kitchen and Bath Association. We are more spec-minded, I think, being kitchen and bath specialists than some other interior designers. We're in the homes early, when the walls are open. We're spec-minded people. We're looking at things like, the wall oven cutouts and making sure that we have the right amount of amps and things along that line as the project is being put together. So we're natural partners to work with plumbers, with electricians, and with integrators. So my initial contact with this whole thing was having people look at me 15 years ago and say, hey, my habits are I wake up in the morning, I drink my coffee, and I like to watch CNN on a large screen. Where am I putting my TV in my kitchen? So we start thinking, if you're Toni Sabatino, how do people live? What habits do they have? What makes them happy? So from that time, I was looking at it more from an entertainment standpoint. Then lighting naturally happens in the equation, and I will never be an expert in any of this, but I can learn to understand my client and partner with the right technology professional so that we understand each other's roles and responsibilities, and the client's expectations are met and exceeded, and the client has a great user experience to go along with their beautiful aesthetic. So the conversation really starts with talking to the person about how they use technology, and they might say they don't. And then you can smile and push back a little, because while they're saying they don't, they're transferring money into their child's bank account. People are texting them. The phone is never more than 2 inches away from their hand.
That's right. I started in the building industry over 50 years ago as a tradesperson, an electrician. Back then it was, you put a light in the ceiling and you put a light bulb in, and that's it. It's amazing now that I've learned we can actually control our life, our actual wellness, by just adjusting some of the lighting values. So Mike, tell me, in your world, integrating all this, and when I first heard that term a few years ago, I thought, integrators, what is that supposed to mean? Well, maybe I was just being the old guy, not wanting to accept it. I totally understand now. Help me understand more about your role and how all this fits together and eventually brings wellness to everyone.
Well, as you can see, even on the floor, there are a lot of little black boxes kind of everywhere. And making sense of all these little details and how to get all this together, and even making understanding the differentiation of the two different devices and how to use them. As an integrator, I kind of handle the logistics of making sure it happens and that you can use the gear in an easy, stable way, and making it, as Toni was saying, making it as simple as possible is kind of the key to the whole thing. In the military, they have a KISS philosophy. And I'm proud to say my brother is a Marine, and that was something that was kind of shown to me. And we keep that same idea where we can take complex tasks and turn them simple so that everyone can enjoy all these cool toys, the voice, the this, that, the ring, and all kind of bring it all together in a very easy, coherent way.
Michael Castner is here as one of our CLIP graduates. He'll attest to what we try to teach you is to understand, don't go overboard with explaining all the details to the client because they just want a nice, comfortable space. So you keep it simple. You keep it simple. My dad taught me that too. Just keep it simple, but that means you really need to know what's going on. You can't just say, put a light bulb in and call it good. Another little statistic to know that in lighting, a person who's over 60, and I'll be there one day, a person who's over 60 needs 3 times the amount of light than when they were 20 years old. So do I just put 3 times the light in and call it good? For a young person, that's too much light. So let's come back to you. How does voice control help adjust that lighting? How does my daughter deal with it's too bright and when I'm saying I can't see in here?
Yeah, I mean, this really comes back to just trying to keep things simple and where the evolution of lighting is really going. Back in the day, it would have just been a simple switch, turn on the light, turn off the light, and not a lot of control. But now you can adjust the brightness, the color temperature, the vibrancy, and you want to adjust at the individual load level. And to have a user interface for doing that gets way too complicated when you're dealing with physical switches. And when you're dealing with digital interfaces, it can still get pretty complicated. So with voice, whether you're hitting a scene, maybe you're setting the room to your kind of good morning scene or your entertainment scene, or if you want to just fine tune the device. So for example, in the Lutron booth and in our booth, we're showing a Ketra integration where you can specifically set the color temperature by voice. You can say, set the lights to 2700 Kelvin, make it a little bit warmer or a little bit cooler. And that ability with voice to really fine tune is the simplest interface. Because again, a physical switch with all of those options would just get too complicated too quickly.
One of my clients years ago with the early versions of controls, when it was done, he said, oh, I know I can impress everybody. Can I just turn the lights on and off? We had to go to extra efforts to bring that back in. It had gone too far. It had gone too far. So where do you all think we're going? There's a lot of buzzwords out there. Keeping it simple, we just call it accessibility and safety. Where do you all think, and I'd like to hear from each of you, we all would, where do you think we're going? Where's the industry going and what are we going to expect?
I really see kind of a balance happening where we see more nature coming in. I think for years we were in this race for technology. What is the newest tech and tech? But we're seeing a more, with biophilia and wellness and trying to bring nature back in. I think we're in the midst of a balancing period where I don't want to say a pullback from nature, from technology, but more of a balancing of having both there and present and kind of, having the ability to have it in your home as well. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's a balance of really understanding whom we need to partner with.
Exactly.
Isn't that understanding those other components? When I've asked designers, well, do you ever use an integrator? They say, well, maybe. Well, do you ever have an electrician or a plumber in a job? Yeah. Well, you need an integrator too. And if that person, when you ask, do you have family or friends that have challenges, you also need a medical expert. And you need to reach out to that community because they know all of these things from the medical perspective. So it's interesting watching this blend of the medical principles, the psychological principles, so we're talking physical and cognitive, with the tangible products and the gizmos that make it all work.
And that's kind of where I'm saying with the balance, exactly what you're saying, where we can use all this technology to give people more of this nature. SI had this shade, so now people can have AC or heat outside, and it's using technology to bring you outside. It's almost like an oxymoron, but the reality is we see more tech that make us freer to be outdoor, to be, everything. In the medical is the biggest. They have pumps for diabetes, making individuals even more mobile. And we see that being simplified into other things.
Yeah, it's amazing. The coming of a toilet that can do analysis, a watch that can tell me things, I'm one of those people that embrace it. I think it's all a great idea. What are some of the must-haves in homes? So you take the typical client that, I just need some work done in my house and I don't want to go too overboard. From each of you, what are some of the must-haves?
Yeah, just really quick, even before jumping into that, I wanted to touch on the last point, which is about where we see things going. I think Mike's point is really great. In our office, for example, we've made the good morning scene, turn on nature videos, set the light to the right temperature, and even add some nature sounds, because it's been proven that it makes people feel healthier, makes people not just feel healthier, it makes people healthier. But another area that I think is really important about where things are going is based on this principle of not just moving from a digital interface to a voice interface, but really moving to no interface. And so there's a book that I highly recommend. It's an easy read, but it has some really good examples, called The Best Interface is No Interface. You can get it on Amazon. It's really powerful because it talks about all these cases where we introduce technology and we introduce the latest app and the latest innovation, but it makes things more complicated. And the great example they show is about 10 years ago at CES, there was a Best New Product Award that was given to BMW for their app that can unlock the car. And they talk about, to use that product, you have to take out your phone, you have to unlock it, you have to go to the app, you have to navigate to the right switch. Hopefully you're not in a garage, you're not gonna have a signal because the whole thing's going through the cloud. And that's way more complicated than a key fob, where you just walk up to your car, open the door, and it unlocks when you get close. And so in the home, we often think about, how do we remove the interface? Why do you even need to give a voice command? If you wake up and go to the bathroom, the light should turn on to the appropriate level because that's just what it should do. And so we're big believers that across the entire industry, from the integration to the manufacturing side through design, we need to think about how to just remove these barriers.
Toni.
I think that part of where we're going and must-haves are really tied together for me, because as a designer, I think where we're going is where you're going with the Living in Place Institute. And I say that not from an infomercial way, but honestly from just from sort of the sociology of interior design, right? What are we doing? We're trying to create spaces where people live well. And it's been very important to me to make sure that my spaces perform well, that they don't just look pretty. So technology becomes truly a natural part of that. And then the Living in Place Institute, everybody has all this talk about aging and universal design and all of this. We went to a little talk last night about how beauty is an emotion. And how does it make you feel? And your brain, your happiness, your wellness, your life expectancy will be better if you're living more in a state of beauty than in a state of stress, right? So to get to that feeling and talk to somebody honestly about their expectations and their needs from their home. We need to talk about the longevity of the space and the fact that it's probably their largest asset, and it's probably the biggest investment they will make when they are either building or remodeling that space. So if we don't address the long-term needs, we're doing them a major disservice. And the Living in Place Institute does it in such a non-threatening way because we are promoting the dignity of everybody who's going to come in and use the space. Could be somebody who's an avid skier and breaks a leg, could be a child on the spectrum with special needs, could be your mother or your aunt that uses a walker. So really giving consideration to the accessibility and the comfort and the safety. It really all comes down to how. And the how to me is bringing in your technology expert to tie all of that together and what you guys are talking about, the most simplest way that particular individual will be able to deal with it.
Right. For you two experts, for the average human being, can technology help in getting up, going to the bathroom, getting dressed, eating? Does technology play a role in helping?
All of above, I would say.
Yeah. Did you all know that 20% of Americans, which would equate to over 4,000 people in this show right now, have a challenge every day with just those basic activities of daily living? So sometimes we think of technology as this real Star Trek-y thing. No, it gets right down to just being able to get up. Most of us use technology when we get up, don't we? It's called an alarm clock.
Yeah, so just jumping on that, there are a few things that are really interesting, but when you study the circadian rhythm and the way that the body is just meant to naturally work, when you look at the way the sun rises and the way that the temperature starts cool in the day, gets warmer at noon, and then gets cooler at night, there's a natural system to how our bodies are expecting the world to behave. And when you're staying up late at night with bright white lights, with warm temperature, with the screen on, that's not helping you sleep. That leads to insomnia, leads to people taking sleeping pills. You wake up tired, you'd have a bunch of caffeine, and it really leads to a bunch of chronic health issues. And so I've spent a lot of time thinking about how can the home help ease you to sleep and help wake you up. And it actually gets pretty simple when you think about what's the brightness and the color temperature in the room, what's the temperature that the HVAC system's putting out. We all know that your phone has a color shift late at night. What if your TVs did the same thing? Or better yet, what if the TVs kind of suggested you might want to stop watching an hour before you go to bed and you'll sleep better? And the long-term result of all of this is that what's the cost of investment to put in this tech relative to the savings of not having these chronic health issues? What is your sleep worth? What is your health worth? And when we start thinking about technology more as a critical part of our life, I think it changes the way that we sell to our clients. And so I'm excited about just the whole industry really transforming to be more about living healthy and happy lives and not as much about just entertainment, which is cool, but I don't think the future of where we're going.
So before we take any questions, I want each of you to think, what would be the one thing that you would recommend to somebody? What's kind of the first step for them? So if I'm someone saying, I don't need this, what would be the first thing you would recommend in my home? If I'm the homeowner, what would you recommend?
Now, I would really kind of tell the customer to really think about their day. Go through their day, the things that they do, and where could they not create a button to press, but where can I take a button away? Where can I create time for you? Because I think real integration, real control is not about creating buttons, it's about taking them away. Now that's what automation is. Now I know a lot of people get confused with control, but control is kind of, we've been doing that for years. And now we started with automation, and we're seeing kind of the next generation, we see voice. So I kind of see that with that idea is how we'll get people up and doing things.
Excellent, excellent. Toni.
I think people need to remember that time is the most valuable commodity that we have. Time is the one you can't trade, right? You don't get it back, and that technology really can be a time saver, even if you have mobility issues or cognitive issues at this point. And also to remember that we're a culture of kindness, and if you have a home that's safe, accessible, and comfortable, you're going to make a lot of other people feel better as well as yourself.
Yeah, that's the Toni I know. We want to help people. That's great. What would be your suggestion for where I should start as a homeowner?
Yeah, one of my favorite integrators here in these rooms, Rich Green, gives a great talk about the future of technology. Mm-hmm. And I chatted with Rich one time about there's so many offerings, there's so much technology. How do you figure out what you're presenting to your clients? And he said he really does it the other way around, and I think this is the right approach across the board. Go through the day with your clients, talk about, do they host guests, do they host parties, do they have kids? What would make them happy? Do they love music? Do they love watching movies? And by understanding the pain points in their day-to-day lives, their goals, maybe one of the couple gets up early and likes to work while they want the other one to be able to sleep, and the gym is near the bedroom, and so you want to make sure that things are soundproof. You can't figure out the right solution until you understand the client, you understand their goals, and you can obviously help let them know about goals they might not be aware of. But I think most clients have some understanding of the things that frustrate them. And maybe voice is a great solution. Maybe high-end surround sound speakers is a great solution. Maybe there's some type of meditation room that's going to solve the goals and the problems they have. But I don't think it's about pushing technology. I think it's about really listening and trying to understand what would help make their lives better.
What I'm hearing is integration is not a new thing, it's a solution. Questions. We have time for a couple questions from the group. Who might have a question here? Michael?
Question for the integrators. What poses the biggest challenge about conveying the tools you have to offer the end user, the clients, and how do you foresee in the near future getting around them to provide transparency in this whole transaction and relationship building process?
Who wants to take that?
Honestly, in the beginning is getting over all the misconceptions or any kind of bad feelings that the customers probably had with technology. Technology has come a long way, and really that is kind of the entry level. Once you get into it, once you can get beyond that, I think at that point you can actually get into the nitty-gritty of what you're trying to accomplish and what the end user really wants.
I find that people that are resistant because they're afraid it's not going to work right, or they have fear of obsolescence, can be talked to about the fact that so many advances. I think you can speak to the streaming technology. Things can be upgraded and updated. Even with kitchen and bath, you talk about connected appliances, and they'll do self-diagnostics, and you can have updates that you don't even know about. They're just happening sort of by themselves. And I think that the fear of obsolescence through the cloud is helpful. Do you agree?
Absolutely. I was actually going to kind of speak to that as well. Toni brings up a really good point. The big fear, and one of the things that is really hard to convey, is we don't know what companies are going to get bought or sold, what products are going to go under. And when you think about if you installed a home in the 1980s, 10 years later, everything was probably still working. But now, if you install a full system today, Sony TVs, maybe Sonos for music, Lutron lights, Josh.ai, whatever it happens to be, if you don't upgrade the system, if you don't stay on top of it, 6 months later, things might not work because of firmware updates and security patches and all sorts of things. And so it's really more of a living, breathing organism than it used to be. And making it clear to clients that you can't, I shouldn't say you can't, for most of the products that we see being installed, you have to assume that this is going to be an ongoing maintenance and an ongoing upgradable system. So it's a tricky thing, but I believe the average client that we interact with is not aware of that as well as they should be. And by making that clear, it helps. And also just, it's frustrating. We've all probably sold and installed systems that don't exist anymore. And what do you do if it's a entertainment system that has video content and the company goes down and they put in a multi-$1,000 system that doesn't work? And unfortunately, we live in a world that's constantly changing, and we just have to make that a very clear discussion with the client so they understand it.
I think too, as a designer, I try to tell people that you're going to repaint a few years from now. I mean, things require maintenance, and the whole technology system in the house is no different.
But on that topic, I think at the same token, service turned into this bad thing. And I don't know when that change happened, but when I go on vacation or I go somewhere, service is the thing that makes me the most excited.
Right.
Service when people serve me. And I think even these systems, service is a good thing. That's what my business
Would you
is
agree
about.
that service, you don't want to have to ask for it?
No, it's part of the whole thing.
Right.
It should be presented from day one, almost as it actually is a line item. You are buying the service as you are buying an item.
Right.
There is a value to it, and I think a lot of integrators, they forget their own value and they only sell the device. Where the service, that is you. You should value yourself as a line item and accordingly be paid.
One way to think of this topic, go ahead, another question. We only have another moment or two. We'll stay afterwards for more questions. Here's a mic.
I think that word service is really interesting because what you're really doing is providing a concierge service. An in-house, always there thing. It's like Iron Man. So the idea that this is pieces and parts, it's a system, and it's a system of service. And the system of service does need human beings every once in a while to kind of move it along.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, using that concierge and your comment on going somewhere and having service, I would recommend that we all think of just including integration with lighting and all facets of the home. Let's just start including all of these concepts in everything we do because we don't know who's going to be in that home. Let's not ask, do you want this? No, I've included this. It's what we as professionals do. We're out of time now, so I want to personally thank each of you. I've learned a lot here. Let's give them all a big round of applause.
Erik, can I quickly say that this new issue of Connected Design has a great article about the Living in Place Institute. So if you're an integrator and you're not familiar, please read it.
And if you'd like to see more about this spoon or to try on some of these glasses, the showcase for Living in Place is right over here. It's right next to the area. Thank you all very, very much. Thank you for being part of this show. Thank you.